Miami Wednesday is what you should know, love, and respect here at the Voice of College Football. We talk Canes with Cam Underwood from State of the U at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. We've done this forever. We might as well just say forever, and we will continue to do so. Pull up, enjoy yourself. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. We appreciate your contributions. And also just get it out of the way. Hit the like button, and hopefully you're subscribed as well. Cam, how you doing tonight?
Doing well. But yeah, follow the action that Mark said. Like, subscribe, share with a friend. When you hear something that you enjoy, and I do my best to provide that, share that out and just say, hey, this is really great, and it's good stuff. And again, been proven right so many times. You'll be ahead of the curve. You'll be the smart guy in your group of friends when you say, hey, I heard somebody say these kind of things. But yeah, like, subscribe, put on the notifications, and as I tweeted out on the interwebs, let's party, man. Let's have some fun.
I just connected a few dots here. I have had some neurological studies done, and I just wake up on Thursday morning and I'm smart. That's my smartest time of the week, is after conversing with Cam on Wednesday night.
I mean,
and it dissipates, and then I need to get re-energized. I need to get another charge on Wednesday. Some people say that about church on Sunday, which I would as well.
Amen.
But, you get the charge, and then you need another recharge. All right. So here's the latest dose, everyone. New defensive backs coach, as you stated to me before we started to record here.
Yeah.
From Houston via Auburn.
Previously at Auburn as well. Yeah. Zach Etheridge is his name. Another young coach, a rising star in the industry, very ambitious and upwardly mobile, has designs on upward mobility. So wants to do well in this job to show and prepare himself for the next job, which is, kind of how things go. But yeah, Zach Etheridge has coached multiple NFL draft picks over the course of his career. And everything. He helped the Cougars at Houston last year, finishing third in the Big 12 and pass defense and 28th nationally. And as someone who is currently writing the season recap for the defensive back position, trust and believe, Miami was nowhere near top 2, top 3 in the conference and top 20 or top 30 nationally. So, yeah, bringing in Etheridge is a good get for Miami. This, again, shows and proves that we will go get a coach from their, from their previous position, like in a good job situation, who's done well. This is a guy who is known for his ability to connect with players and recruit, which the lifeblood. I mean, hey, you want me to enjoy a coach? Tell me that coach is a good recruiter. Hey, and you have to be a dogged recruiter to work for Mario Cristobal. That's just point in fact. He's, obviously good at developing the talent that he has and using them well. He was the defensive pass game coordinator for Houston. So, the way that they were running coverages and things was a lot on his plate. So that also shows, when you get these secondary and tertiary titles, right? It is more of a responsibility, but it also enables higher pay, which we've talked about, enabling the team to keep that player, that coach, right? So if you were just your B-flat basic, sorry, that's my music terminology, your normal average coach, right? You're just B linebackers coach, but we really want to keep you around. So we're going to make you associate head coach, defensive run game, defensive pass game, offensive, whatever assistant to give you an extra $50,000 or $100,000. You have the responsibility as well, but that also adds into your skill set when you want to move forward. And by all accounts, Zach Etheridge does desire eventually to, elevate himself into, defensive coordinator and potentially even above that. But yeah, getting, a guy who has done the job in multiple places, Auburn, for all of their struggles, usually has a very strong defense. He was their defensive back coach 2 years ago, left there, went to Houston. I already talked to you about the performance there. I don't have the list in front of me of players that have been drafted that he has coached, but I think there's a second rounder, a couple third rounders, and other players who were drafted, not just at the, dying end of the draft, but who have also made their NFL teams. So this is a guy who knows how to coach, who can really recruit, and is, and this is a word that Corey Heatherman really spoke about in terms of what he views as foundational to success on defense. Zach Etheridge, that is a master communicator. He really connects with his players well. He communicates that well, and he carries himself in a very professional manner when communicating, with parents, families, media, whatever. So you have those 10 poles right there to the hire. I believe that he's going to come in and coach defensive backs, which is both corners and safeties, by the way. Whereas last year we had a defensive coordinator who coached safeties and a cornerbacks coach, which has been the difference. So, if that is true, that Etheridge coaches DBs, then you would expect Heatherman to coach linebackers, which is a position that he has coached in multiple stops, including his last stop at Minnesota and the previous stop before that when he was only linebackers coach exclusively linebackers coach, at Rutgers. And then you have Jason Taylor still on staff out there recruiting right now as the one, it seems to be carryover from the previous defensive staff. And with 10 assistants now in play for many, many years, that leaves 2 spots open on defense, 2 assistant slots. You could go a number of different ways. You can go with the interior defensive line coach, again, just to directly replace Joe Salavea, who coached interior, and Jason Taylor did, edge and pass rushing people. So even those linebackers who would walk down sometimes. You could have inside and outside linebackers coaches, though you're usually only going to play 2. So I think you could probably get away with a single linebacker coach. You could split the defensive back room again and have safeties and corners. There's a lot of different ways that you can go with those 2 remaining spots. Or you could even bring in a linebackers coach and let the coordinator coordinate, and then have one position with multiple coaches. And then there's special teams also, so you could bring in a linebackers coach and a special teams coordinator coach, and those be your 5 assistants. Well, actually, that would be too many because Heatherman counts. Anyways, yeah, there are different ways. No, he doesn't. Yes, he does. Yes, he does count. He does count. But anyways, there are lots of different ways that we can go with that, but it seems to be, yet to be confirmed by like the University of Miami, but all reports indicate that Zach Etheridge will be matriculating down from Houston down here to Coral Gables to join the staff and help rebuild the performance on the defensive side of the ball in the secondary, which, like I said, as I'm presently crafting the season review for defensive backs, woo, buddy, it was rough.
So the coaching fraternity is an interesting one. Does Etheridge have any ties to Miami, or based on what any of the coaches on the staff, have they crossed paths at all?
Not professionally, like not as in working together, but maybe at the AFCA convention or things like that. He worked for Greg Schiano at Rutgers, who obviously has been a coach for a long time, knows a lot of guys. He was just at Minnesota with PJ Fleck, who, was the youngest position coach in the NFL before he got the Western Michigan job. So people are like, oh, it's all this, sayings and row the boat and all. It's just slogans. But and like you have to have that. Like, I had, we had a mantra, we had we had sayings and phrases when I taught that were foundational, that like went the breadth of my time when I taught at Miramar for 11 years. We had our motto, we had our foundational things. But PJ Fleck, in the same way, this man was coaching NFL wide receivers at like 26. Like, not as the assistant head, like the assistant receivers coach, like the receivers coach in Tampa. So, he has connections at many levels and a breadth of experience. And, Heatherman has bounced around. He also coached with Kirk Signetti for a few years when he was at Holy Cross before they, at the time that they transitioned up. So he has worked with people to have, had his network expanded. And look, and he's working for Mario Cristobal right now, which I'm sure he had ideas of who he might want to bring in, but then Cristobal will say, hey, I think this person might be a good fit. Go down that road and evaluate and things. So, yeah, I don't necessarily think that he's tapping into his own exclusive network of connections and things like that, but he's worked. This is the 4th major name in coaching presently that he has worked for, and he's going around with that orange and green U on his chest now, or that's what's coming up as a 305 284 extent. That's the number to the University of Miami campus. It's 1305 284, then a 4-digit suffix. Those are numbers from the University of Miami campus. I worked in the scheduling office. I remember all kinds of crazy things, but I definitely remember that. So when he called Zach Etheridge, he saw 305 284 something, and said, "Oh, hey, wait a minute, right? I'm going to pick that one up." Whereas opposed to if he's calling from somewhere else, maybe Zach Etheridge might not have picked up. So you have the brand of the U on your chest when you're going out and recruiting and talking about these positions, even on the coaching staff, and that's advantageous as well.
Not to divert the conversation, but anytime PJ Flex brought up, I kind of smirk because there's just such a polarization, just polar opposites of people that love him, hate him. He's just that type of guy. I'm not going to vouch for his authenticity because I have no idea. I don't know the man, but I've always been humored by, and I generally like the guy, the way he comes across. People would be surprised that he actually played 1 year in the NFL. He doesn't look like an NFL player. He actually played 1 year, not like he was catching 50 passes or anything. He was like a special teams player that I just looked up, caught one pass in his NFL career.
Hey, that's more than a lot of people who even got drafted in whatever round. So yeah, he was, was a dog. And then, he was, NFL, receivers, like head position coach and in his 20s. Like, this is a guy who knows football. And like I say, he played in the league. Like we heard from Mark that he caught a pass, coached in the league and everything, and then has been in college for many years. Obviously had the success at Directional Michigan and everything. So when I hear people talking about, oh, Corey Heatherman, basically he's new and he doesn't know anybody. You've worked for Cignetti, Chiano, Fleck, and now Cristobal. And even if you don't necessarily think that Rutgers is the biggest national brand, it's not, but it's big enough. I'm sure there are plenty of coaches who would love to get a call from Rutgers and elevate. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Holy Cross, when they were there, got them up into, Division I, into the FBS, and won the award for best, assistant coach in FCS at the time. So yeah, he has connections at least through the coaches that he's worked with, and is continuing to grow his network, every day.
And to your earlier point about the play of the defensive backfield last season, I saw a list just the other day. It's something like 5 transfers into the secondary, something like that. It's a lengthy list of guys that have played well already in their careers at this level.
Yeah, I mean, look, you get Zach Poyser, who's a South Florida native, transferring in. He was a freshman All-American, so was OJ Frederick. You get the kid from Michigan State, who's a 5th-year senior. I gotta go look at it because I should have been prepared with the names, but I'm not. So Charles Brantley. Yeah, he's a guy who's played in the Big Ten for years. He's returning back home to South Florida as well. That's another good get in the secondary. Emmanuel Carnley, a gigantic corner from Arizona. Thank you very much for that. Ethan O'Connor, another Wazoo transfer. Thank you for that. And then we talked about Xavier Lucas last week, right? So that, you're adding talent, and then you recruited fairly well. And like, even as I'm writing this recap, if you can get quality contributions, I mean, you're stapling on OJ Frederick as a starter, right? But if then you add development from Zaquan Patterson, you get something from Markeith Williams, you got these other young guys in the rooms who, might develop as well. Hey man, you could, the talent is there, but you got to coach it up and you have to deploy it appropriately. So, that dude Rod Sham, okay, with the XAM, I love it. Let's go.
Appreciate y'all being here. Comments or questions are welcome, of course. The ACC has released its 2025 schedule. Folks, aside from not being able to watch football, of course, during the offseason, other than that, I kind of love the offseason from the standpoint of love rankings and ratings, figuring things out, proposing new playoff formulas. I love that kind of stuff. To the point that one of my shameless promos would be that right now, I'm working on going through every conference, and we are breaking down all the games that they played outside the conference to determine who's the best conference and how do we rank these conferences.
Hold on. I'll be right back.
Sure, you're good. And we worked on the Big Ten today. If not released that video, so we will. We have released the ACC. I'll drop the link in the maybe in the community page on the channel. But the ACC and the Big 12, we did the SEC, and now it's on to the Big Ten. And I just mentioned that because we're not just like sizing up like one statistic. The Big Ten was 12-9 against the other conferences, and somebody else is 9-12, so they're better. No, we're going through seedings differences, winning percentages from all these teams, point differentials, all sorts of good stuff. So, which brings me to the schedule release for the ACC for 2025. We will pull this up, and of course, it starts out with a non-conference game that has got to take everybody by storm in regards to from a national perspective, and we've got some ads that we need to kick out of the way before we go there. But bingo. So if we blow this up, we've got this mammoth, and this is another great thing about the opening of college football is that wraparound weekend where it starts on Thursday. And the more college football you can watch, the better, because obviously everybody's playing on Saturday throughout most of the rest of the season for the most part. And so it's difficult to watch everything you want to see, but a couple games on Thursday, a couple games on Friday into Saturday, Sunday game, Monday game, and Notre Dame and Miami on a Sunday night.
Sunday night, August 31st, which everybody say with me, my cousin's birthday yet again. For the opener, it was Saturday this past year. It's Sunday this upcoming year. 7:30 p.m. ABC National TV. This is the spotlight game of week one during Labor Day weekend. It, has been on the schedule for years. We have the rotating agreement with as in the ACC, has the rotating agreement with Notre Dame, where they're not a member, but they play member schools to help fill out their independent schedule. So this has been known for a good long time. The other thing off the top that you'll notice, there are 8 home games this year, as opposed to the usual 6, maybe 7, just because of the way that, things went. So, you get the USF series, which was not scheduled. So that one was like a late addition into the scheduling. Usually these are scheduled, 5 and 7 years out. That was only a couple of years in front of when those are being played. Then you get the return game on September 20th of the home and home against the Florida Gators. Also, and then, you're going to have your home game against your HBCU or FCS, sacrificial lamb. So the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats are going to come on down. So yeah, in your first 4 weeks, again, those are your non-conference: Notre Dame, Bethune-Cookman, USF, and Florida in that order. Bookend of the marquee games. And this, and I in the piece that Mark is zoomed in on, this is on stateoftheu.com, where I put up all of the stuff for the schedule release. I wrote in there and said, this is the non-conference of dreams for those people who said Miami wasn't playing anybody in the past, right? So like last year, we played Florida. Cool. They're a major brand. They were terrible at the beginning of the season, and we blew them out. Then we played Bethune. We played Ball State. We played FAMU. We played Ball State, who ended up being like 129th out of 134, right, in the FCS. So one of the worst FCS teams you could play. And then we went to USF. So people were saying, well, you only have one. I would like to see more. I want it to be scheduled like it's my college football 2025 dynasty, where I go on the road to the top 4 toughest places to play every year, beat all those top teams, and then I walk through the conference for a championship. This is more along those lines. You get Notre Dame, who just played for a national championship, and a Florida team that is usually tough. They're if nothing else, they are a talented team. And they have DJ Lagway with another year. And that, even when I said it a year ago, that I thought that he would potentially be the better option for Florida to compete against Miami, He is unquestionably their starting quarterback this year, and a very talented player as well. So that's your first 4 games of the year. And then we get to the shenanigans. So I want to say again, or bring back up a thing that's also in this piece. There is an extra weekend in the September, October, November quarter of the year. Usually there are 12 weekends, and then you start in August. So that's 13 weekends to play 12 games. That's why usually each team gets 1 bye week. With the same 13 weeks, and there's 5 weekends in November, as you see on the screen there, that means that there's 13 weeks there. You start in August, that's 14 weeks. So there are 14 weeks to play 12. So every team gets 2 bye weeks. When are Miami's bye weeks? After Florida and then after Florida State. So sandwiching Florida State, weeks 5 and 7 are Miami's 2 bye weeks. The ACC continues to do this asinine bullshit with Miami scheduling. There's no reason we need to have another bye week after Florida State. And I know people are going to say, Cam, they did the same thing to Duke and to North Carolina around one of the games in their schedule. I forget who or whatever, but they also have 2 byes in 3, or, bye game bye, 2 byes in 3 weeks. I don't care about any of those other teams. I was hopeful because I tweeted it out. I was looking at this to prepare over the weekend because the ACC announced the week 1 games on Thursday of last week. Then they released the ACC openers for every team on Friday. And then, they released the full schedule on Monday. And as I was preparing and pre-writing my article, I was like, wait, this is when I counted the weeks. I was like, oh my God, everybody gets 2 bye weeks. This is great. We can play, shout out to Moses Malone, fo. You know what I mean? And then have 4 bye, 4, and then whatever. But yeah, again, what are we doing? And it's just Miami and Duke and Carolina, but teams I don't care about. But still, it's a very few teams that have their byes in basically right next to each other, which is stupid, but whatever. So the ACC opener on Saturday, October 4th in Tallahassee against Florida State. So you're also in 3 weeks going to have your both big rivals. Well, and in the first 6 weeks, you have Notre Dame, Florida, and Florida State. Regardless of the quality and caliber of team, those are 3 big games in your first 5. Then a bye week, and then a Friday, that is correct, a Friday night game against Louisville. I hate Friday games because you can't really recruit. I wish we had a Thursday home game, and then the coaches could be out recruiting on the Friday because most everybody plays on Fridays, but whatever. Then Stanford makes their first trip to Hard Rock the next week. Then we finally leave the state of Florida for the first time in November to go to SMU. Then I need some get back against Syracuse November 8th, CJ Bailey and the NC State Wolfpack on the 15th. And it's crazy to me that we only have 4 away games, and half of our away games are in the last 2 weeks of the year. Now, I knew, or when I saw what the matchups were on paper before they even got placed, I knew in my heart of hearts, and I even tweeted it out during the announcement special. I said, we're ending the year on the road in Pittsburgh Thanksgiving weekend. That's set it and forget it. I mean, there's no question about that. But then we have Virginia Tech the week before that. So, overall, the non-conference is tougher than last year because, like I said, you're replacing one of the worst teams in FBS football with Notre Dame, who played for a national championship. Whatever you feel about them, that is in a massive increase in quality over what Ball State presented. You have USF year over year. If they play better in 25 than they played in 24, that singular game is, I would say maybe it's about the same because they were keyed up and, it was 15-14 before that cover 2 hole shot before the half, in Tampa last year. Bethune, whatever. And then Florida, if they have improvement year over year, that game is harder now than last year. So, yeah, the non-conference is harder. And I think the conference schedule is comparable to last year, to 2024. except for then you end on the road in Lane Stadium and at Pittsburgh, which can go sideways. So overall, yeah, I think that this is a moderately harder schedule. You do have the 8 home games. I hope to see you all out there, and I will be letting you know, especially that week of November 15th, y'all better come out because, there were a lot of empty parking spots and a lot of walking around room in the tailgate area and all kinds of stuff for senior day last year against Wake Forest because y'all didn't want to come out. So, everybody wants to complain about there not being football. There's plenty of home football for you in the season upcoming. And those are my thoughts about it.
Here's where I'm going to go. But before we do that, let's get to the segment as sponsored by Falconer TRX with the super sticker with the looks like Microwave Dynasty is building a smoker. The bye weeks are too close together.
Yep.
We saw that as well. Falconer with this one. Sunday night beatdown of Notre Dame will be epic. Buy tickets now.
Yeah. And then Mark Richt also was talking his shit on the announcement show because he was like, yeah, you remember the last time that Notre Dame came down there in 2017? And you know who coached them? I did. You know where I went to school? Miami. And you know what we did to them? 41-8. In that, I was like, retired Mark Richt. I was
You're
like,
supposed to be a network guy.
Yeah, hey, yeah. But he was just like, I remember because I was the coach and I'm an alum and I hate those guys and this is what we did. And I was like, go off then, kid. So, that's going to be, that place is going to be a rocking. Like, if you, throughout the year, that USF game, there's going to be plenty of people who either don't show up or show up late and they still get a good parking spot. They're not going to walk that far. Do not try to do that on August the 31st, ladies and gentlemen. Get there early, prepare, plan, all of that stuff because the place is going to be packed out on Labor Day Sunday night.
So anytime I check out schedules, I check out a few things. So first and foremost, we go to the out of conference. So credit Miami here. So most programs across the country playing in the Power 5 take this approach. Okay, go out and schedule a Power 5 opponent. We're doing our due diligence. That's what's required of us, whether we've got 3 non-conference games as they do in the SEC the Big 10 and the Big 12, or 4 games in the ACC and the SEC. Generally, if you look across those teams, almost everyone plays one big opponent. Then the other 3 or 2 games are Group of 5 FCS. Now you will have your situations, most notably with a couple teams in the ACC and the SEC that have that crossover, Florida State, Florida rivalry and such, Louisville and Kentucky, South Carolina and Clemson, where some of them will go out like a Clemson did last year. They played Georgia at the beginning, South Carolina at the end, and they got a difficult double dip there. You've got your USC, who I always have respected them because they will go out, boom, take on an LSU, and they always play Notre Dame. Then you've got your schools that wimp out. I have noted this a number of times. Baylor has not played a ranked non-conference opponent since 1997.
Ooh, what a stat. My goodness.
So there's some schools like that. Ohio State was one of those schools this year. Now, my excuse will be they had Washington on the schedule when Washington joined the Big Ten. Then they switched that out. And so they played 3 cupcakes. Michigan played 3 cupcakes the 2 years before that. Anyway, but by and large, but then I love it from the standpoint of, yes, just the viewing pleasure of those teams. And Miami's one of them this year that is playing 2 major brands. I love it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, and they're both at home, which is great for, I know that a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't want to buy season tickets, or what does the home schedule look like? Brother, sister, you're getting Notre Dame, Florida, Louisville, Syracuse, and NC State. And the bonus of 3 other, those are 5. That's if you had a 5-game home schedule, those 5 games are enough. And on top of that, you get Bethune, USF, and Stanford. Come on, man. like not sponsored by the athletic department or the ticket department or anything, but just like, bro, I mean, like, guys, what are we talking about? Like, yeah, like this is, yeah.
So the next place I go with the schedules, especially since these conferences have expanded to be so large, there is a greater disparity between schedules within a conference than ever before.
Yep.
Because if you do the math, we got 17 teams, therefore you've got 16 possible opponents. You only play 8, so you miss 8 in the conference. And so, for example, I did a breakdown on Texas and Oklahoma at the start of this season because I in reviewing the schedules, I'm like, man, this is screwed up. Look at this. And I did the math. Texas is playing teams in the SEC this past season that won 35% of their games the year before, and Oklahoma is playing teams that won 65% of their games. Just completely, just the inequity just drives me crazy. So
It's
I'm
out of
looking at
balance.
Miami and I'm thinking, and another caveat to this is we tend to, or at least I do, and I think most college football fans do this, we tend to think that teams are going to stay the same generally. The quality of play, and they do to an extent. But there's obviously drop off and they're unexpected teams that emerge and so forth. But what stands out in the conference schedule, no Clemson. So that's an obvious one. But I think other than that, it's a pretty tough ACC schedule because you miss a lot of weaklings. Virginia, there's no Virginia. There's no Wake. They've been awful for 2 years now. There's no Cal. There's no Boston College is marginal. They're in the middle of the pack. North Carolina, who knows about them? They weren't very good last year, but they got Bill on board. Georgia Tech's obviously been a thorn in the side. There's no Georgia Tech this year, and they're decent. But Clemson's the only, if SMU continues to play as well as they did, I don't know if that's a one-year wonder. Who knows? But I think it's a slightly tougher than middle of the road AC, maybe even more than that. A fairly tough ACC schedule.
Yeah, I mean, if you like going into the year or like looking at right now, it's reasonable to think that like your top 2 or 3 teams will be Clemson, Miami, and SMU. Obviously, Miami cannot play themselves. I mean, they will at the spring game, you know what I mean? But so you're playing one of the other 2 top teams, and to your point, not even anything else, but missing a lot of the bottom feeders. So you're playing a lot of the other teams of some kind of quality. In general, Georgia Tech and North Carolina State more or less are interchangeable in that, upper part of the middle tier there. But yeah, so that's not like a step down. Virginia Tech, always going to be tough. Pitt on the road, always going to be tough. Louisville, tough. Syracuse, clearly tough. Florida State, we'll see, but I think that that's going to be more towards competitive than not. I don't want it to be, but I think that they could find a way to do it, especially if they have that little Smurf running around at quarterback this next year. And then Stanford, they find ways to stay in games. So, yeah, I definitely think that this is one of the top probably 4 toughest ACC schedules possible. But that's fine. We just got to go out there and do the things we need to do. Paulo Pitt as the last game gives me PTSD. Look, when I saw it listed, well, I knew that was happening. And to Cesar Iglesias' previous point, yes, I was in the stands as well for the 2017 Notre Dame game. That felt like the Orange Bowl. Like, it was crazy. It was loud. That Trajan Bandy interception before the half, I mean, I couldn't hear myself think. And me and my boy Matt, shout out to Matt, we were sitting in the front row right on the 25-yard line on the Miami sideline. So he was returning the ball up the far side at Bandy. And there were 2 septuagenarian, octogenarian Notre Dame fans, very elderly gentlemen sitting next to us. And they decided at that moment that they had seen enough. And they vacated their seats very quietly. They didn't even say anything. They kind of looked over at me and my boy, and all of us who were just, overflowing with this positive emotion and screaming like, "Oh my God!" Whatever. And they just kind of looked and were like, cool, and then just hit it and everything. So yeah, that was an incredible moment in memory. So if we can do anything like that again, that would be lovely.
And if I remember correctly, that pick was against a quarterback who turned out to be a decent player, but before many people knew who he was, that was a young Ian Book, I believe.
Freshman Ian Book came in for Brandon Wimbush, I believe.
Yeah.
And yeah, he tried to throw the interception on the play before, and two Miami players ran into each other, and they went to the same scheme. And I forget which coach it was, but they told Bandy and they said, "Look, you're playing over there in the flat. If you see it, go get it." And they tried to run double slants, and there was Shaq Quarterman. Shaq Quarterman was flowing from his middle linebacker spot. Bandy came the other way and got it, and then there was Adrian Colbert or somebody, maybe. Like, there were three, but there was no way that ball was getting to the receiver. But it was just like when you're like learning how to play basketball, it's just like, okay, cool. Instead of just doing an entry pass, like look left, pass right. Just like that little, whatever, before you initiate the play if you're playing point guard or something. Ian Book did that. He was like, I'm throwing the ball over here, and I'm going to try. Bandy was in zone. And it was a moment. So yeah, if we get moments like that again, that would be great. And also, they were talking about that Josh Adams 33 trucking, that running back that year. He didn't do anything. And it always just warms my heart because Notre Dame wants to be holier than thou and all that stuff because we're the Catholic University of the United States. And one of their coordinators, I think it was their offensive coordinator or offensive line coach, when they had their when they arrived at the stadium and they had their team huddle in their shirts and ties, just like good old Notre Dame, just like I used to wear on performance days at Cranbrook, the blue blazer with the school tie and the white shirt. And he sat there and cussed a fucking blue streak. Fuck these motherfuckers, and we're gonna die. Excuse my language, but all of that. And I'm like, but y'all are supposed to be the paradigms of virtue, right? And then so they didn't know that the wire cam was on, and so the production booth was like, cool, we're just gonna use our thumb, we're gonna put it over there, turn on the parabolic microphone, we can hear everything. And he went in and everything. I'm like, so where were all of these virtues that you pretend to espouse when you were talking about all the filth, floor, and filth that you were going to do on the field? Miss me with, and like, again, for me, if you want to be that, do that, say that, live that, cool. But you also want to have the holier than thou image in public, and that's really how you are? Nah, my friend.
Well, I don't know if it was the documentary, The Catholics versus the Convicts
documentary.
Oh,
that Notre Dame propaganda piece of crap. What?
Okay. Well, it was either that or something that I watched that I thought did a decent job of elevating or just debunking the stereotypes. Not that there isn't some truth to most stereotypes, but basically to say these are the Miami players from those teams that were very high level students who accomplished this and that and so forth and so on. And these are the Notre Dame athletes that, okay, they either got into legal issues or, they were, notorious partiers or whatever. There's not this ridiculous discrepancy between the moral character of
what I mean?
two.
But I mean, look, that 30 for 30 was an ode to copyright infringement, basically. So you're putting all that out there. And I mean, there was, who was it? He played in the league for a long time. Offensive lineman. He played for Denver. Chris something in the early 2000s. He was in education classes with me. He got his master's in education. Matt Walters, who famously had the interception at Boston College after it came off of Mike Rump's knee, number 91, was a grad student in physics, taking classes with some of my friends. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, Catholics and convicts, whatever. That's just, don't get me started on
that. Back to the Pitt finale.
Ugh.
Knowing that having lived in Ohio probably half my life at this point, look at some of the major games, Ohio State, Michigan in particular, that weekend this past, it was brutally cold. Now, other times it might be 60. You just don't know. It's a wild card. It's not going to be as warm as it is in Miami. That's one thing you do know. That's for sure. But it could be fine or it could be brutal.
I'm not even really concerned about the weather as much as like, as somebody in the comments said, like seeing that on the list is like PTSD. You know what I mean? It's just like that mental hurdle of like going up there the last week of the year again, and things like that. So yeah, just trying to get past that mental block really. But yeah, it was very clear to me that was going to be the finale for the season. But yeah.
We got Dennis Wilson here. We got Orange and Green, Blood, CWO. We've got a lot of good people here in the chat. We do appreciate you stopping by. Kenson, Jameis,
Thank you.
Scott. Yes, absolutely. Appreciate all of you. And leave the comments and questions. We appreciate the super chat contributions as well.
Mm-hmm. I will say, as you should be hitting the like button and everything as well, I'm very pleased to see that all of the Hurricanes who are participating in the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl are, to a man, standout players. So, you look at the Shrine Bowl and you see highlights. You're like, who is this number 15 wide receiver who's jumping over people and running away from guys? Oh, hi, welcome back to the show, Sam Brown. This linebacker who's blowing up all these running plays and covering running backs out of the backfield. Thank you very much, Kiko Mawanoa. Elijah Arroyo at the Senior Bowl has been uncoverable. And the Senior Bowl has NFL staff, so they actually have the NFL, like, I don't know if they're which role, but like the doctors who do the measuring at the combine. So they have like official measurements. Elijah Arroyo measuring in at 6'4.5", 251. And having on that touchdown against Georgia Tech, ran faster on that play than I believe Tyreek Hill ran on any single play this year. Yeah. Freak. Jalen Rivers bodying everybody. Is he playing guard? That's where, when he was asked about it in an interview, said, look, I can play anywhere. We cross-train at Miami. I play tackle. I play guard. I've even taken snaps and worked at center because there are teams there who are like, hey, let's see what you can do. He himself said, I think for the longevity of my career, I can see myself fitting best at guard at the next level. But if a team drafts me to play tackle, hey, I'm there for whatever the team needs. But you asked me where I could see myself fitting, so I'm answering that question. But he's been a standout. Tyler Barron making plays at the Shrine Bowl. What's his name? Restrepo. Yeah. I saw like a couple of different draft people were like, it's taking 15 minutes on the first day of one-on-ones, and Xavier Restrepo is my favorite / best receiver here at the Senior Bowl. So yeah, like anytime that you turn around, all these guys are making plays. And then even if you extend it out and you have the SMU Hurricane, like the Dallas Hurricanes, right? The Elijah Roberts of the world, the Jared Harrison Hunts of the world, also as well in addition. And he would never say it, but I'm going to say it for him because I'm petty sometimes. Josh Connerly Jr. from Oregon got ran over in one-on-ones today. So I tweeted it out under with Sport. I retweeted it. He got ran over by a dude from Marshall who, buddy, it was bad. It was bad. It was like, you see those videos of like a dad going to an Optimus game and they play the Oklahoma drill or whatever with their kids, and the dad just that's what it looked like of this dude running through Josh Connerly Jr., who only measured in at 6'4" and 1/8, by the way, as well at offensive tackle. And like I said, he wouldn't say it, but I just picture Mario Cristobal seeing that rep and smirking. Because if you don't remember, Mario Cristobal did not and would not recruit Josh Connerly Jr. when he was at Oregon. and then left to Miami and still didn't recruit him. The only reason that Connerly went to Oregon is because Cristobal left, and then Dan Lanning went to recruit him and everything. So then seeing that player that he did not recruit, who was, a 5-star, everyone was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing? He's right from Seattle. Like, he wants to come here, blah, blah, blah." And seeing the lack of performance or whatever, especially during that run. And then there were others as well. He struggled through a couple of days. I'm petty, so I'm saying it on behalf of Mario, but not on behalf of Mario because I'm not empowered to do that. But I could just, in my petty brain, I see Mario there at the Senior Bowl watching that rep and smirking off in like elbow or nudging Mirabal. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you see. Like I could totally see that. I'm writing fan fiction right now. I'm reading a bunch of fiction books, so like my creative brain is going, but I could totally have seen that being his reaction.
If you would have asked me what year Josh Connerly was in, because to me it seems like it was just yesterday that we were going through his recruitment and his status coming out of high school, I would have said he just completed his sophomore season.
His junior season, but remember, juniors are now eligible for Senior Bowl if invited. So, yeah, I believe he was 3 and out and then was one of the players invited.
Is there an obvious number one selection from Miami this year into the NFL draft? Not that they will be a first-round selection, but a obvious first guy to go.
Absolutely.
Oh, Cam Ward. Okay.
See, no, okay, because
we'll go to the next.
Right, because Cam Ward is not he did not go to the Senior Bowl. So as opposed to the Shrine Bowl, which bent over backwards to bend the rules for the progeny of Deion Sanders, the Senior Bowl is very staunch on if you will not do interviews only. Like if you're coming here to play and compete. And then you'll do everything associated. But there's plenty of other times and places that you can just, if you only want to talk to teams, you can do that elsewhere. But like if you're coming here to compete on the field, get your cleats, strap it up. And, Cam Ward was invited. They made a whole big production of it when they came down, but he declined, or in the end decided not to go to the Senior Bowl. So I could see where, we're talking about these other guys for their reps, and he's like, the reps on the field, and he's not there. So I could see that. How he might have escaped your mind for just a second. But yes, it is definitely Cam Ward in the first 3 picks going to go off the board. The next player off the board, I think, is going to be Elijah Arroyo. I really think that he's tight end 3, potentially 2, depending on how you feel about Colston Loveland from Michigan in this draft. And then I would say Restrepo also I think Elijah Arroyo is going to be top 50. I could see Restrepo being top 65 and potentially even higher. I think, if Restrepo runs well at the combine and really lights on fire those change of direction drills, that I think that's where he's going to make his money. I don't think it's going to be in the 40. Like, he's not going to pop up with, faux to faux, anything like that. But I think he's going to put up some numbers in the change of direction drills, the short shuttle, the 3-cone, things like that are really, really going to pop. And that's where he's going to make his money. But yeah, I think that those 3, definitely in the top 65. I could see easily Restrepo, Arroyo, and Ward being gone before the end of the second round, all 3 of them. And then just kind of taking it from there.
Folks, for the next 30 seconds, we would like to tell you about something that's coming up here at the Voice of College Football. Ohio State, Michigan, the greatest rivalry in sports deserves the greatest debate in sports. Monday, February 17th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the main channel. It's the Ohio State, Michigan All Everything Debate with me, taking your calls all night if it takes all night. I'm pulling no punches, so beware. Bring your best intel. It's the Ohio State, Michigan All Everything Debate. It will be epic. February 17th, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Be there. These Ohio State and Michigan fans are relentless in these various live streams and call-in shows. It just never stops. So I just thought, you know what, we're going to just I am going to state my perspective on it, which I went on a rant today to say I am biased. I am not stepping away from that. But what I do is I refrain myself as much or restrain myself as much as possible.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to try to fool anyone. Therefore, what we're doing is I'm only taking calls from Michigan fans. I don't want any Ohio State fans to call. None. Zero. I will take up for Ohio State and the callers in the chat if you're Ohio State fans or just college football fans, because if you love this kind of stuff, this kind of vitriol, then it will get no better than that particular night a few Mondays from now, because we will get into it. We will be very I have promised not to yell at anyone or call people idiots or morons or anything like that. I will respect everyone, as I always attempt to do, but certainly have at times gone out of that stated goal. But it should be a good time.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely be sure you check that out. And other things you can check out are up on stateoftheu.com. We have our schedule release piece, our first State of the U award for Play of the Year. Off the top of your head, Mark, any ideas?
Oh, shoot. Well, it's going to be the last play against Virginia Tech. No?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was it against Cal?
Nope.
Well, those were the two high wire. Are we talking about? So when you talk about a play of the year, it could just be this was the craziest play or this was the most unbelievable run or catch, like a Barry Sanders, but it could be not meaningful. Is it a combination of it being meaningful, like there's 3 seconds on the clock, and
not meaningful in that way? I put all of these options in the selection because there were so many to choose from. It is meaningful and I believe memorable.
It's got to be some play that Cam Ward made, escaping all sorts of doing pirouettes in the backfield, and then but I can't remember. I will remember it because I'm sure I saw it, but
Cam Ward to Jacoby George in the back of the end zone at Florida in the opener.
Yeah,
I remember the first Heisman Trophy play, the one that even when it happened, I said, "Oh my God, that's the one that's going to lead his highlight all the way through the season, off-season, draft." That play, that was the overwhelming selection for Play of the Year. So that's up. Justin DeTavio giving you some KPIs for those of you who love to integrate your secret day jobs and foundations into your sports. Some key performance indicators for winning and losing. I put up, a couple other schedule release things. DeTavio looking at the possibility of Miami winning a national championship next year. So all of that is up presently on stateoftheu.com. And then, we're working through the rest of the State of the U awards, our position recaps. I think I have like 5 of them already in the chamber, so we're going to schedule those out so we have those hitting the website in the next few days, going into next week as well, and even more. So Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the State of the U. Website, like I said, is stateoftheu.com. It was just on the screen. We're always open 24/7, 365. Please come on over and fan with us. And if you are hearing the sound of my voice or looking at me and Mark on a screen, or both, because both things can be true at the same time, like, subscribe, set the notifications so that you don't miss it when we're here on Wednesday night or any other time that we may be here. Hint, hint. Hint, hint. I'm not saying anything. But if there were to become other times that we were here, you might want to know about them, right? Like, subscribe, notifications, and you will. And on that note, Mark's going to think about it. You all in the chat will think about it. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next week.
Falconer TRX, thanks for sending us off with this one. In a sea of blind Ohio State and Michigan fans, the one-eyed Miami fan is king. Cam would take maybe a slight exception to that, but we will see you back here next Wednesday with all sorts of good stuff. And of course, more to come on what Cam had to say. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Peace.